shooting of Halyna Hutchins by actor Alec Baldwin. What was going on the set of the movie? Were proper protocols followed? And who could be facing criminal charges? Tonight, we take a look at the facts and the law.
Halyna would love that movie to be finished and released to the audience because she was a rising star of the Hollywood.
In Brunswick, Georgia, the killing of Ahmaud Arbery murder trial. 3 men facing life in prison for chasing down Ahmaud in their pickup trucks and then fatally shooting him. Jury selection continues and court TV cameras are inside the courtroom.
If you feel that the police in general do not treat equally black and white people, that the police, whether that's locally, abroad, or throughout the country.
On the docket tonight in Kenosha, Wisconsin, we are 1 week away from the start of Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse charged with shooting 3 people, killing 2 during the Kenosha riots. Tonight, we take a look at today's contentious pretrial hearing.
The totality of the circumstances go into play in determining whether or not behavior is chosen out of disregard for human life. And that's what we're saying it was.
In tonight's unsolved case file in Northport, Florida, the remains of Brian Laundrie have been recovered and identified, but so far the medical examiner has not been able to determine cause and manner of death. Tonight, we look at the evidence and the questions still lingering in this case.
Investigators found what appears to be human remains, along with personal items, such as a backpack and notebook belonging to Brian Laundrie.
In Atlanta, Georgia, police tracking a murder suspect with their air unit. We take a look at the dramatic video with our law enforcement experts.
He got out. The car's still rolling. He's trying to break. It looks like he tried to break into that car just now. Got out of the driver's seat while the car was still rolling.
In Garland, Texas, a kidnapping caught on camera as a child is taken while mom tries to stop the kidnappers. We take a look at the video during crime time. Plus, actor Alec Baldwin shot and killed Halyna Hutchins. He has expressed remorse publicly for the accidental homicide. Tonight's 13th juror question: how much responsibility for Hutchins' death do you place on Alec Baldwin? Go to our Facebook pages and let us know. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And there are a lot of stories to get to tonight on this program, and we'll do it. We'll work through them one by one. But let's start with what happened on that movie set out in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Halyna Hutchins should be alive. Let's just start right there. She should be alive. She should be on the set working. She should be able to go home, be with her family, her husband, her son. But that's not it. It's not going to happen. She was shot and killed. Alec Baldwin is the one who fired the weapon. And, there's a lot of debate about what happened, why it happened, and how this could happen, and what it all means. Well, it means, first and foremost, it means that this woman has lost her life unnecessarily. There was no reason for this to happen. People have to do their jobs and do them correctly. This was all taking place, as I said, in New Mexico. At that, in Santa Fe, there's a ranch that's used for lots of different movies. It's been used many, many times before, and it was being used. Alec Baldwin, the executive producer of the project. And you can see, it looks kind of like a Hollywood set, kind of in the middle of nowhere, and they were able to produce movies and shoot movies. And movies inevitably, especially Westerns, have guns in them. Almost every movie I watch has a gun in it. Sooner or later, someone's pulling out a gun and firing it. It's part of the business. It's part of the fabric. So here tonight, I want to, again, dive into this story, but going down 2 avenues. Facts and the law. That's what we do at Court TV. We take a look at the facts, then we take a look at the law and figure out what's going on here. So first, we're gonna get some new information from the affidavit that was released from the search warrant. We'll take a look at that. Then we'll bring in our panel of experts, and we'll take a look at the law in New Mexico and see what do the facts potentially say, and how will they be impacted by the law of New Mexico, and will anyone be criminally responsible? Okay? Civil liability, it's over. It's done. That's not even a discussion to have. Not even a discussion. It's just who's going to pay and how much. But that means nothing to the family. It means absolutely nothing to that family tonight. So let's begin with some of the facts or alleged facts that we're getting our hands on here. This, again, is from the search warrant affidavit. And in it, it says, during the filming of the movie, Assistant Director Dave Halls grabbed one of three, quote, prop guns that was set up by the armorer, Halyna Gutierrez, which was on a cart. Affiant, this is the officer who's signing the search warrant, learned one of the prop guns was then grabbed by the Assistant Director, Dave Halls, and he took it to the actor identified as Alec Baldwin. As the Assistant Director, Dave Halls, handed the gun to actor Alec Baldwin, Dave Halls yelled, quote, "cold gun," indicating the prop gun did not have any live rounds. The prop gun was fired by the actor Alec Baldwin, striking the cinematographer Halyna Hutchins and Joel Souza, the director. Affiant later learned the assistant director, Dave Halls, did not know live rounds were in the prop gun when he had given the prop gun to actor Alec Baldwin. But it did. So how is it supposed to work? I mean, what are protocols? How should this go down on a movie set? Like, this is not the first movie to be filmed with the use of a gun. They call them prop guns, but it's a real gun being used as a prop. Not the first time, won't be the last. It may be for some of the people associated with this movie. They may never want an actual gun on the set ever again. They'll want actual props, not guns used as props. But let's get some insight into all of this. Joining me now is the Associate Dean of a great school, the Chapman University Film School, a specialist in set procedures. Daniel Leonard is with us. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Let me just start with your human reaction to what happened. And being someone who understands how the industry works, what was your reaction when you heard and learned about what happened on that set in Santa Fe, New Mexico?
I think it was awful, particularly because I think it is entirely avoidable. If protocols had been followed, I don't think it would have happened.
Okay, there's a few words here that I want to go through with you. According to the affidavit, Dave Halls, the assistant director, is handing a gun to Alec Baldwin and says, "cold gun." What does that mean? Is that a term that's used all the time? Is it a term that could have different meanings on different sets with different people? Is it an industry standard? What are your thoughts there?
That is a term that's used to indicate that the gun is empty. But typically, the AD is not the person who would hand the gun to the actor. That should be the armorer, the person in charge of the gun. So this was a break in protocol that A, he brought it to him, and B, that he yelled cold gun without actually verifying that it was.
So you mentioned the armorer. That's Halyna Gutierrez, and there were apparently three, quote, prop guns that were set up and laid down on a cart. Is that normal procedure? Are guns set down and maybe, I don't know if there was no one watching them, if they were in a place where someone had access to them, but I know when we cover trials, chain of custody is incredibly important. What are your thoughts there about the guns being laid out on a cart and someone grabbing one? What should happen in a situation like that?
What should happen is that the armorer or weaponsmith should be, the person in charge of the guns should be there with the weapons. They should never be left unattended. If she had to go somewhere else, she should have taken them with her. And if the AD saw that she was not with him, he should have summoned her, and they should have gone through with a fine-tooth comb all three of the weapons before they moving on. Also, my understanding is this was a rehearsal, and generally you shouldn't use a gun for a rehearsal. You could use a prop for that until you do the actual take.
That was you're right on target here, and no pun intended at all when I said that, and that's honest. But that was my next question to you. Was apparently this is like a rehearsal. It seems like they're almost blocking the scene. It's the director, it's the cinematographer, it's the lead actor of the scene, kind of discussing things. Would there be any reason to have the gun in the actor's hand at that point?
No, a prop would certainly suffice, because this is where you're determining what's safe. And so having a rubber gun is usually what would be used for that. And you would determine an angle where there is no human on the other end of where the gun is pointing. There also should be other precautions taken, like a barrier put between the cinematographer, camera operator, and the actor as well, depending on the distance they are from camera.
Okay, let's talk about the pointing of the gun. Now, when you shoot a movie, obviously the guns seem to be, in some of the shots have to be pointed at human beings. Gun safety people say you never point a gun at someone unless you're going to use it to kill them, right? I mean, that's basically what gun safety says. Never point a gun at another. But movies, it seems like that's part of it. Now, here, we're not talking about pointing at another actor, though. Apparently, the gun is pointed in the direction of the cinematographer and the director. What are your thoughts about? Is that something that would happen normally when you're filming a scene?
Well, usually it's very carefully choreographed not to be pointing directly at a person. And so oftentimes they call it cheating, is that you cheat at the angle that you're pointing so that you're not pointing at anyone, but the camera can't really distinguish depending on the angle or the lens and whatnot. So that should be extensively looked at in pre-production and very carefully managed on the set. And so it doesn't appear that this happened here.
The other term, this term live rounds, and the LA Times wrote about it, and it has my head spinning around a little bit. What does the term live rounds mean to people in the industry? And could a live round be a blank? Could a cold gun have blanks, or is a cold gun going to have absolutely nothing in it? How do those terms work with one another in the industry?
So a cold gun should have nothing in it. Live ammunition, bullets should never be brought to set, period, because they're never going to be used. A hot gun would have the blanks in them, and that's a warning to say that we're going for a take. This is live. You need to be very careful with the weapon while it's on set. And what typically should happen is that the armorer should hand it to the actor. They would do the take and then hand it immediately back to the armorer. Is there,
and what's that back and forth like when you're an actor and you're being handed a gun for a scene? Is the demonstration that the gun is safe, the gun is cold, is that done in the presence of the actor? Is it done in the presence of anyone else? Is it just up to the armorer to do? Is there no an industry standard on it? Exactly how does that work in movies that are filmed day in and day out?
Yeah, it should be done in the presence of the AD. The AD shouldn't take possession of the firearm, but you should verify the state that it's being handed. So if it's intended to be empty, because there may be shots that are going to go to set, they're not using blanks, because if they're not necessary, then you wouldn't use them. But usually that would be better done with a rubber gun. But if you're looking to verify what is actually in the gun, the armorer should check it. In the AD's presence, who sort of verifies it, should be handed to the actor, who should also double check it. There should be training done before you get to set that works all of this out and makes sure that everyone has the knowledge that they need going into production.
All right, one final question, Daniel, because I want to make sure I'm covering everything that's important to all of this. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you think people should understand about what happened or understand about how things should work in Hollywood?
You can now do these sorts of things in post-production. And so there's a big sort of push, why do we need to have blanks on set at all? We're in the land of make-believe. Can't we just mime it and add the flash and post, which is a lot of productions do, and some productions have come out even in response to this incident to actually say that they're not going to use blanks anymore on set. And so no one should ever lose their life making a movie. I think it's just that simple.
Daniel Leonard, we appreciate your time tonight. Associate Dean over at Chapman University Film School. Amazing school, doing amazing things. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
All right, folks, we've got some facts. Let me put the law up for you so you understand what the law is in New Mexico. Manslaughter would be the potential crime here, and manslaughter in New Mexico is the unlawful killing of a human being without malice. Let's go to involuntary manslaughter. Consists of manslaughter committed in the commission of an unlawful act. That's not this, not amounting to a felony, not this situation, or in the commission of a lawful act which might produce death in an unlawful manner, not necessarily, or without due caution and circumspection. So involuntary manslaughter in New Mexico can be a lawful act which might produce death without due caution and circumspection. So who is at legal risk here? There's really three parties in this case. So far from my reading of the facts. You've got the armorer, Halyna Gutierrez. You've got Dave Halls, the assistant director. And you've got Alec Baldwin, the actor. These seem to be the three people who had control, possession of that weapon at one point. So who, if anyone, is at legal risk? And tonight we're talking about criminal liability. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, criminal defense attorney, civil rights attorney, Casey Early. Also in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, former prosecutor, former assistant state attorney, counsel for Ben Crump Law, and trial attorney Sue Ann Robinson. And in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney Michael Bixon. Great to see everyone tonight. Thank you so much. Casey, what do you see here in terms of potential criminal liability? You've got the armorer, Halyna Gutierrez, Dave Halls, the assistant director, Alec Baldwin, the actor. Your analysis.
Well, we definitely have other layers. Before you even get to Alec Baldwin, I agree that there should have been checks and balances and checks again. Like, how did we even get here? We know that over almost 30 years ago, we had the probe with Brandon Lee. So from that time, had there not been protocols in place, we know that that was a break in that particular protocol. So the question is, who failed to act in due care and without caution? We know in New Mexico, this is a 4th-degree felony, punishable by 18 months. But is this sufficient? Depending on the investigation, it may discover that there were other parties involved that failed to make sure that this was not a live round or failed to take the proper procedure. But obviously, Mr. Dave Hall, when he called out cold gun, did he inspect it to ensure that this was not a live round? So definitely the producer, the assistant producer, and the armorer for sure.
Sue Ann Robinson, what are your thoughts tonight? You've got the armorer. I mean, one job only. I mean, this is your job. You're on the set of a movie. I don't know how much money they make. Doesn't matter. Your job is your job, your responsibility. Then you've got the assistant director who grabs it, allegedly, off of the cart, gives it to Alec Baldwin, says, cold gun, and then Alec Baldwin has the gun in his hand, and he's the one who squeezes the trigger. So under New Mexico law, how do you see it?
The assistant director is doing too much. Why is he doing the armorer's job? Why is he handing Alec Baldwin a gun? And why is he doing the armorer's job and announcing that it's a cold gun? He's clearly the intervening cause in this whole thing. Because if protocol was being followed and Hannah was allowed to do what she's supposed to do, which facts haven't come out saying she was stopped from doing it, the AD is clearly jumping in and trying to do Hannah's work. And he did it wrong. And that's really where everything kind of falls off the wagon. And Alec Baldwin ends up hurting someone and killing this budding, awesome, amazing director in training. And I think it's so sad that it even happened had to happen like this. I think it's important to note that right now, so many facts are coming out about the production, that it's an independent film, that they had other staff members walk out, other cinematographers walk out. They were having issues with respect to their budget and things like that. I think it's important to look at those kinds of things, because those are the kinds of facts that are going to be used as a justification to make it make sense as to why the assistant director is now putting himself in the place to do somebody else's job. Because, we're having an issue with budgeting.
Michael Bixon, I'll give you the final word.
I think there's one person. It's Miss Gutierrez. She's the armor. She's the person responsible for the guns, for the firearms. She's the person who maintains them, who loads them. If the director grabs one off, it's on the reliance that she has done her job and that she has maintained these firearms in a safe way. So I think at the end of the day, you have to work your way up the food chain and look at who's actually responsible for these firearms. And that's Miss Gutierrez.
All right. When we come back, folks, we've got a lot more to get to. Jury selection continuing down in Brunswick, Georgia for the case against the 3 men accused of murdering Ahmaud Arbery. Live report when we return.
So glad, yes, we've got good religion, and I'm so glad we've got good religion.
Part of what's happening outside the courthouse down in Brunswick, Georgia, as jury selection continues for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. This is going to be, I think it's going to be like this every day outside of that courthouse. This is one of those stories that has just garnered and struck a chord with so many folks. Welcome back to Closing Arguments. Great to have you here. Ahmaud Arbery, you know, we were talking in the last segment about someone who should be alive. Well, Ahmaud Arbery should be alive as well. I mean, he was basically going for a run through a neighborhood, stopped off, looked at a house that was under construction. I've seen the video. I didn't see him stealing anything inside that house. Why he's being chased by 3 men in 2 pickup trucks, and 2 of the men have guns. The first 2 there, the one all the way to the left, a shotgun that ended up killing Ahmaud Arbery. I bet if you ask all 3 of them, if they could go back and do things a little differently, they would absolutely do it differently. Absolutely. And part of their defense is self-defense, which is interesting, because usually if it's in a self-defense case, you're like, no, I did what I had to do. But I wonder if they really look at what they did, if they would go back and do that whole day a little differently. But we'll see what transpires inside the courtroom. Right now, I want to bring in Court TV legal correspondent Julie Janae, is joining us tonight from Brunswick, Georgia. All right, what's the latest in jury selection?
Vinny, another late night for these potential jurors. Things just wrapped up, and we now know that we are half of the way there. 9 potential jurors qualified today, and we're looking for a total of 64. Right now, we have 32 jurors. You know, it doesn't look like half on this pie chart, but I think we're about half of the way there. If my math is correct, 9 is the highest number of potential jurors we've cleared in a day. So we're on day 5, and so far we still have about 32 to go as far as what the court wants. Qualified jurors does not mean that these are the seated jurors. These are the ones who have not been struck for cause. Included in that number of people who were qualified today are people who say that they took part in the hashtag Run With Maud campaign. Some who say that these defendants should not have taken things into their own hands. We also have a scorecard of what some of the people in the entire pool of 19 this morning had to say during general questioning. 2 of them had medical training, and none of them said that they've ever investigated a crime on their own. 1 did raise their hand to say that they wanted to serve on this jury. That was a prosecution question. And the defense wanted to know, do you have negative feelings about any of these defendants? 4 had a negative feeling about Travis, and 3 for both Gregory McMichael and William Roddy Bryan. So things are going to start up tomorrow again at 8 o'clock in the morning with motions. Vinny?
Okay, speaking of motions, it seems like these sides have done a lot of filing and some last-minute filing here as well as we get ready for the opening statements to begin. What's the latest?
Well, there's one issue that is still hanging out. There's actually several, but here's one that we're looking at because there was another response filed recently. The use of force expert that the defense wants to bring in. The state says that this person should not be able to testify because there's not a law enforcement aspect to this chase and then confrontation. But here's what the defense says in response to that. They say to aid the jury in its determination of whether Mr. McMichael's actions on February 23rd were reasonable, the jury will hear evidence regarding Mr. McMichael's training and experience while he was in the United States Coast Guard. Such training and experience informed Mr. McMichael's decision-making on February 23rd, and he spent approximately 10 years in the Coast Guard, where he was a boarding officer with arrest powers. These concepts that he learned include use of force continuum, perception, reaction time, escalation techniques, restraints on the use of deadly force, weapon retention techniques, the ability of an unarmed person to inflict serious bodily harm and to continue to inflict injury even when the injured and the determination of probable cause. All of those are issues in this case. We know as far as the Coast Guard, that was something that was a previous employment background, military background for Travis McMichael. This motion says he may have been relying on muscle memory that he used during his training, and that's why they believe this use of force expert is going to be important for this jury to hear why he may have reacted the way that he did when he pursued Ahmaud Arbery.
Yeah, and again, we have to remind everyone, use of force generally is used in police cases involving officers, but obviously no officers involved in this one, but someone who was with the Coast Guard. Okay, some accusations today about some unfair questions towards jurors.
This is something that may be dealt with tomorrow morning because the judge has actually brought up. It's a question that one of the defense attorneys is asking potential jurors, at least some of them. They're asking the jury or the potential juror who's being questioned, would you want yourself to be on this jury if you were one of the McMichaels? If you put yourself in their shoes, would you want yourself on this jury? And the judge actually said that this may be on the border of a racially charged question in the way that they are asking it. And that has been echoed by the Transformative Justice Coalition. They are members who have been here inside the courtroom watching this. They say they think there's some discrimination in the way these questions are being asked. Here's a listen to Barbara Arwen and Daryl Jones talking outside the courthouse today.
I think that the prosecution is getting stronger in making sure that the jurors are not badgered and harassed. And I thought it was fascinating that even the judge today, at the end as we were going to break, that he mentioned all the racial questioning and said that he's allowed it, but he wants to kind of keep it in bounds.
So I think that a lot of what you saw coming at the end from the judge today was an acknowledgement that there is a potential Batson issue, that they're going down that road of really disqualifying jurors based on race.
Yes.
And they're using the basis of questioning to try to get there. And so the whole Batson challenge issue is now beginning to be surfaced.
Right.
We haven't heard any Batson challenges yet because we are not at that stage of the questioning. That will be after we have 64 and then these sides get to use their peremptory strikes. But about Judge Timothy Walmsley, at the end of that questioning, he even pointed out that he believes there was a question that was asked of one juror who was white, actually who was black, and not of a juror who was white. And he said that they seem to respond the same on their jury questionnaire. So seemingly he's questioning why the defense chose to only question the African-American juror in one way and not bring up that same line of questioning with the other juror. So we may hear more about the arguments over that in the morning because it is a motion that was raised by the defense to ask that type of question.
Yeah, I think jury selection is going to get dicier and dicier as we get closer. Julie, Janae, stand by. I want to put a picture of Gregory McMichael up on the screen. This is one of the defendants, and this is an image I think a lot of people have in their mind. He's in the back of the pickup truck. He's got a gun in one hand, but in his left hand, he's got his cell phone because he called the police. Let's take a listen.
Hello.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
I'm out here at Silver Shores, There's a black male running down the street.
Satilla, where at Satilla Shores?
I don't know what street we're on. Stop right there! Stop! Travis!
Sir, hello, sir. Sir, where you at? Hello? Sir, are you still there?
Let me bring back in my think tank because I'm wondering how this call plays and who it helps and who it hurts. Sue Ann Robinson, the fact that during the pursuit prior to the shooting of Ahmaud Arbery, McMichael calls 911. Does that help him? Does it hurt him?
I think it hurts him because of what transpired on the call. He's not saying that Ahmaud is doing anything. He's saying, I see a black man running, which is not a crime. It's not a felony. It's not a misdemeanor. It's actually something people of all colors do. So I think that the actual audio of the call does not help at all. I think the fact that he called 911 plays into some sort of, they're trying to do the right thing, or they believe the crime, that a crime was being committed, and that's why they called 911. But I think once he's actually on the call, that is totally taken away, because he's not saying that he's witnessing a crime or that Ahmaud is doing anything wrong.
Michael Bixon, we only have about 15 seconds here. Sorry.
I couldn't say any better. I absolutely agree. I think that the call itself on its face looks good, but the content of it really hurts them because, again, they're not really able to elicit the crime that they're alleging that he's committing, why they're chasing him down with the truck.
All right. Still ahead. On the docket tonight in Kenosha, Wisconsin, we are 1 week away from the start of Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse charged with shooting 3 people and killing 2 during the Kenosha riots. Tonight, we take a look at today's contentious pre-trial hearing. Plus, actor Alec Baldwin shot and killed Halyna Hutchins. He has expressed remorse publicly for the accidental homicide. Tonight's 13th juror question: how much responsibility for Hutchins' death do you place on Alec Baldwin? Go to our Facebook pages and let us know. On the docket tonight, the case against Kyle Rittenhouse, accused of shooting 3, killing 2 during the riots in Kenosha. Today, inside the courtroom, legal arguments about whether or not a use of force expert or experts will be permitted to testify. As I just mentioned in the prior segment, use of force experts usually reserved for cases involving police. Kyle Rittenhouse, not an officer, 17-year-old kid from Illinois who was in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Let's take a look at those arguments.
What we're talking about specifically, much of with Dr. Black, is his analysis of the situation from a non-law enforcement individual, and his ability to analyze those videotapes frame by frame for the timing. When we've looked at this case, and I've discussed it with numerous people, when one looks at the still pictures, just still photographs, it seems to take forever for the events to unfold. When one looks at the videos, it seems to go snap of an eye. And we tried to break it down for time, so how fast these things are occurring, how fast Kyle Rittenhouse is having to make his decisions, and that goes into the mindset of whether it's reasonable for somebody of his age and stature in that situation.
How does Dr. Black's expertise, training, background assist the jury in making their decision? This is the central question of my motion, Your Honor. The videos can be analyzed in front of the jury, frame by frame. A stopwatch can be used to time the sequence of events for the jury. Arguments can be made as to what that means in terms of thought process, reaction time, stress, decision making, whatever we want to argue. But I didn't hear anything in that narrative that suggests that Dr. Black is necessary to help this jury make this determination. Anybody can use a stopwatch to time a sequence of events in a video. Anyone can stop a video and watch it frame by frame. There are opinions as to the intent of people. I don't think that's something that Dr. Black should be giving an opinion on. I don't think he's qualified to give that opinion. He acknowledges in his report he hasn't spoken to the defendant, so he can't guess what the defendant's intent was. He can't give an opinion as to what the defendant's intent was. He certainly can't give an opinion as to what Joseph Rosenbaum or Anthony Huber intended, because they're both dead. So his guess as to their intent is no better than the juror's guess.
Okay, so what should happen here? Let's bring back in our think tank, Casey Early, Sue Ann Robinson, and Michael Bixon still with us. Casey, do we need, and I say we, I mean the jurors inside the courtroom, do they need a use of force expert in a case like this where it's not about a police shooting? This is a self-defense case, the defendant a 17-year-old.
Absolutely not. The problem with the use of force expert is if you get the Dr. Black to testify as to the type of force that was needed in the self-defense case, then you have nothing to really measure it by when you're talking about a civilian. In this case, you can't measure it by the training and experience of a particular officer, which is common for a use of force expert. So the only thing he's going to do technically is speculate as to what was going through the mind of Mr. Rittenhouse. And also the defense wants to break this down frame by frame, understandably. But this incident did not happen frame by frame. It happened within a 2 to 5 second window. So again, this is the defense putting on zealous advocacy, but the use of force experts should not be allowed to testify because there's nothing to measure that up to when you're dealing with a civilian.
Michael Bixon, I know sometimes criminal defense attorneys love experts because it's a way to kind of sneak in the testimony of the defendant without actually putting him on the witness stand.
No, and you're absolutely right. I think in a case like this, though, the use of the expert is going to be really good for the defense if they can get him in. I do think they should be able to get him in as well. I mean, you're talking about someone who's talking about a higher standard of due care than the defendant is supposed to exercise in something like this. Obviously, for the defense, that's great if they can say that, he acted within the sort of standard of care that you might see somebody like an officer do in a situation like this. For the prosecution, you hear them talking about, well, they could use, they don't need to bring in the use of force expert. They could use things like a stopwatch or other things like that to discuss some of the aspects of the events as they unfolded. And that's very true. They could, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to bring in this use of force expert to discuss those things. So I absolutely agree with the defense. I think they should be able to bring him in. I think it's going to be a great tool for them as well.
Sue Ann Robinson, your thoughts. Experts are brought in they're supposed to be brought in to explain things to a jury that they might not understand, right? It's an issue that's a little bit more complicated, and you need that expertise, whether it's a scientist or, an expert in anything. Your thoughts about this expert for this trial?
This is not that. This is not a situation where an expert is needed. It's a reasonable person standard. If they want an expert on being a 17-year-old, then get a 17-year-old, one of the ones that were at home at that time doing what normal 17-year-olds do, and have them testify about what a reasonable 17-year-old should have been doing. He does not need a use of force expert. Let
me ask you, Casey, if in fact this expert comes in, do you think Kyle Rittenhouse does not take the witness stand, that the defense will rely upon this expert explaining what's going on through the mind of the defendant?
I would not expect Mr. Rittenhouse to take the stand. Why does he? You have an expert explaining what he went through, what his mindset was at that time. So what else is Mr. Rittenhouse going to testify to? And I do believe this is why the defense is fighting so hard to get this expert. It's not necessarily to allow him to give the jury a greater explanation as to what his mindset was and to break the frame down. Is to prevent Mr. Rittenhouse from testifying. So this is definitely a defense strategy, and I hope that the judge rules accordingly and does not allow the expert to come in and testify.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this trial is just around the corner. Take a look on the screen. November 1st, that's 1 week from today. 1 week from today, the trial starts. And guess what? It looks like this trial may very well start before the final jury is seated in the case against the 3 men accused of murdering Ahmaud Arbery. So keep your eyes on this one as well here on your front row seat to justice. Of course, we'll continue to let you know everything that's happening inside that courtroom. When we come back, time to hear from you, our 13th juror. What a reaction today. I posted, and within 5 minutes, boom, 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 everyone has an opinion about Alec Baldwin and how much responsibility does he bear. Now, we've talked about it. There's a lot of people touching the gun, other people whose job it was to inspect the gun. He was told certain things, but at the end of the day, he's the executive producer of the project, he's the lead actor of the project, and he's the one who fired the weapon. Your verdict next.
Before you go to sleep, you check the Facebook feed, and it was Andrea Chung. She's a producer who sharing this news from the newspapers, and I cannot actually sleep because that's like a movie. It's hard to believe that it's actually happened right now, and we are not in a kind of scenario because unfortunately Halyna is gone right now, and we still do not know how to process all of that news because, of course, we would love to know what actually happened there. And it's not just me, it's like everybody in the world, I guess.
That's a friend of Halyna Hutchins, the cinematographer who was shot and killed by Alec Baldwin. And I asked you today on social media, how much responsibility do you think Alec Baldwin has for what happened here? And I said responsibility, not necessarily criminal responsibility, but perhaps legal, moral, ethical, etc. responsibility for that shooting death. We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day. It comes to us from Kat, who says he has ownership of the film company, therefore he has a very high level, 100% liability for the project and all who were hired to make it happen. The 24-year-old armorer was not comfortable and did not have adequate experience. That's on Baldwin for allowing this person to work on the project. Casey Early, ultimately, and again, we're not talking about criminal responsibility here necessarily, but how much responsibility does Alec Baldwin bear here?
Well, he certainly has to share some responsibility. However, a greater percentage of the responsibility should, again, go to the other parties involved. This is just an unfortunate freak accident. It should have never happened. However, because of his capacity as the executive producer and lead actor, he shares some of the responsibility.
Deborah, tonight, not his fault. They have people whose only job is to make sure that prop gun is not hot. When they handed him the gun, they said, cold gun on set. Go after that person. Michael Bixon, your thoughts about Alec Baldwin's responsibility for what happened here?
I agree there. I don't really think that he has much fault to bear here. I think maybe the director for just handing him a gun and saying it's a cold gun, but even more so than the director, I think it really comes down to the armor, whose job it was to maintain these guns, whose job it was to make sure they weren't loaded with live bullets and had them actually out on a tray ready to use.
Rhonda tonight, it was definitely accidental, but he's got to take some blame. Don't they teach you first to never point a gun, even an unloaded one, at anyone you don't intend to shoot? Sue Ann Robinson, that's what we're hearing, and I'm hearing a lot of it on Facebook and from a lot of gun owners, that you just don't do that. Is there some Hollywood exception to that rule?
I don't think the fact is that there's a Hollywood exception. I think we're all Monday night quarterbacking, obviously, this horrible experience. And Alec is certainly bearing the most responsibility because he pulled the trigger. I think he was relying on other professionals on set, including the assistant director and the armorer, to not hand him a gun that would harm other people. And I think he relied on them to his detriment, obviously, and ultimately causing the death of, the director. So I think at this point, he is bearing full responsibility, a lot of responsibility. He feels, we saw some of the images of him crying and talking through it. And I think he's gonna bear that responsibility for the rest of his life. Who knows how it's gonna affect, his career, all the people on set, and obviously the family who have lost a loved one.
Donald, tonight, the blame is totally his, not the guns, not the director, not the prop guy, gal. Gun safety 101, treat every gun as loaded, period. Casey, we only have about 10 seconds here. But how about the fact that the armorer is just 24 years old and is not that experienced? Is that a problem?
That's certainly a problem, but I would expect that Mr. Baldwin would have vetted his employees better. So if her experience was lackluster, then of course it will increase his liability.
All right. What a great job tonight, Casey Early, Sue Ann Robinson, Michael Bixon. Thank you all so much. We'll see you again really soon. When we come back, we're going to continue to dive into this story, take a look at the latest in the case involving the death of Brian Laundrie. Don't go anywhere. In Santa Fe, New Mexico, new information related to the shooting of Halyna Hutchins by actor Alec Baldwin. What was going on the set of the movie? Were proper protocols followed? And who could be facing criminal charges? Tonight, we take a look at the facts and the law.
Halyna would love that movie to be finished and released to the audience because she was a rising star of the Hollywood.
In tonight's Unsolved Case file in Northport, Florida, the remains of Brian Laundrie have been recovered and identified, but so far the medical examiner has not been able to determine